Hi, parents and guardians. Welcome to our brief presentation titled Growing Independence, How Students Can Participate in Their IEPs at Every Age. We are graduate students at California State University, Long Beach. My name is Haley Childers, and I am a student in the Special Education Master's Program at Cal State Long Beach.
And my name is Hannah Robinson, and I am a school psychology master's student at Cal State Long Beach.
We are a part of the CRISP grant, which stands for Culturally Responsive Instruction and Intervention in Self-Determination Programs. This is an OSEP-funded grant led by Dr. Kelly Sanderson and Dr. Kristen Powers, where graduate students at Cal State Long Beach in special education and school psychology master's programs participate in an interdisciplinary intervention program where we develop and implement culturally responsive self-determination intervention for K-12 students with disabilities. Our objectives today are to understand what student participation in the IEP looks like, learn how it changes across ages, and gain strategies for you to support your child's involvement. Take a second and reflect and ask yourself, has your child ever participated in their IEP? You might be thinking that your child is only 7 years old or 10 years old. Of course, they haven't participated in their IEP. Well, part of our work here today and what we've been working on in our grant work involves the belief and the practice that students of all ages can participate meaningfully in their IEPs, in their meetings with their team. First of all, what is an IEP? It's a quick refresher, assuming if you are tuning in that you have a student who is on an IEP or maybe beginning to walk down that path. So an IEP stands for Individualized Education Program. This is a plan that outlines present levels, goals, services, and supports under the special education umbrella for children identified as having a disability that impacts their learning and their education in the public school. The IEP team, so according to IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the team must include parents, guardians, that's you, general education teacher, special education teacher, a district representative, related service providers, and the student when appropriate. So our guiding questions today, first of all, what do we mean by student participation? Also, what is self-determination? And what does student participation look like at every age? So the law says that the student should be participating when appropriate. That does get defined, but also what is appropriate? And we are making a case that students can appropriately participate from very early on. So what do we mean by student participation? We mean students being involved in planning their own education. So this would be sharing things such as interests and preferences, strengths, needs, and goals. And this can range from listening to speaking to leading their meeting. Why student participation matters. So the research shows that students participating in their IEPs builds their confidence. It helps students understand their learning needs. It improves long-term outcomes, such as in school and work and in lifetime independence. And then it prepares students to advocate for themselves. Research also shows that students are more likely to meet their IEP goals when they know what those goals are. And so student participation has multifaceted benefits for students across domains. So again, what the law says, IDEA is that Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It outlines special education law, and it says that transition planning is required by age 16, and so students must be invited when transition is discussed. So students begin being invited to their IEPs by age 16 when that transition is being discussed. Some states have earlier timelines such as 14, but across the country the mandatory age is 16, but participation can begin much earlier. So what is self-determination? This involves making choices, setting goals, speaking up for needs, understanding strengths and challenges, and it positively impacts employment and living outcomes, positively impacts academic performance, and empowerment and inclusion. So, self-determination in a nutshell is really a person making determinations for themselves, choices, and taking actions to um, kind of achieve the things that they want, right? And advocating for themselves. And ultimately has a lot of positive benefits for students and into adulthood. So early childhood through kindergarten. What could a student possibly be doing in their IEP so young? Well, it can look like choosing between options. Do you want to learn to count to five? Do you want to learn your colors? Or it could look like just expressing likes and dislikes. Oh, I really like, what's your favorite toy to play with? Who's your favorite friend to play with outside? And then learning simple communication skills. Hi, introducing themselves, saying thank you, saying goodbye. Um, those kinds of very simple skills can still be a part of the IEP and can be reflected in the IEP meeting. So as early as kinder, they can be their interests, their preferences can be reflected in the IEP through their own voice. At home, families can offer choices. Do you want to read or do you want to draw? Or you can model asking for help. In early elementary, those grades 1 through 3, student participation might look like introducing their team. This is Miss So and so. She helps me with writing. This is Mr. So and so. He helps me with my PE skills. And it can also look like sharing likes and dislikes more specifically about school. What subjects do you like or not like? And then identifying basic strengths. Oh, I'm good at reading or I'm good at math. And then expressing when something is hard. I feel like I have, I face a challenge when I'm learning multiplication or things like that. At home, families can ask simple reflection questions. What was easy today? What was hard? You can practice short phrases I need help with, and you can create a simple strengths list together. As far as upper elementary goes, so grades 4 and 5, student participation can get a little bit more involved. So this can look like just students describing what helps them learn. So knowing um, what accommodations benefit them, beginning to understand those supports known as accommodations, knowing what they're entitled to, being taught the skills to ask for those accommodations, and then helping set simple goals. I really want to get better at writing a complete or a paragraph this year, or I want to learn all my multiplication facts. And you, as as educators, as an IEP team, along with parents, we get to involve those student goals into their real IEP goals and make learning give them some of their control over their learning in that way. And with my students, personally, I've seen a really big impact on their motivation has increased greatly based on the fact that they take responsibility and ownership for the goals that they've set for themselves and then wanting to work towards those goals. And these students can attend part or all of the IEP meeting. They can attend the beginning part and maybe share those core parts about themselves, what I'm interested in, what I like, what I don't like, what I want to work on, those kinds of things. And then something that's powerful too is that we will have the whole team share the student's strengths with the student so that the student can be celebrated. And I've seen that my students really take that to heart and that sticks with them. And then students can also share a short prepared statement or other resource that they have prepared. Some of my students like to use slideshows, some like to write scripts, some like to draw pictures. We have guides and one-pagers that help them identify those domains that they want to share about. And as a family, the strategies that you can do to support your child in grades 4 and 5 at home are to practice explaining supports. So help them understand what they have that, or what they do that helps them. So it helps me when I can Review IEP goals in simple language, and then help the child prepare 1 to 2 things to say at the meeting as well. And then with that, I'm going to pass it over to Hannah for middle school.
Yeah, so moving on to middle school, what student participation might look like in this age bracket. Students might explain what accommodations help them in their classes. So that could look like extra time, breaks, seating arrangements. They can reflect on their progress throughout the year. So saying things like, I improved in this area in math or English, or recognizing that they might still need help in a specific subject as well. And then they can also begin identifying challenges and possible solutions to these challenges with their team. And they can participate more actively or help lead small parts of their meeting. So then at home, families can work on introducing self-advocacy. So this looks like asking for help appropriately, explaining their needs to teachers, and understanding their learning differences. Parents and guardians and family members can also help encourage independence in homework and organization at home. And they can begin asking questions such as, what helps you focus best? Or what could your teacher do to support you in order to get them thinking about what their needs are. So then moving on to the high school and transition period. Student participation might look like leading parts or most of their IEP meeting. Students can continue to share their personal goals and future plans as we are going into the transition planning period. And then students can discuss their strengths, needs, and supports confidently. And then at home, families can support by involving their child in real life decisions, as students have to begin thinking about that at around this age period. So that can include with jobs, with scheduling, with budgeting. Families can encourage goal setting conversations about the future, as well as connecting their goals to current school supports. So then to touch on transition services a little bit more, which is a requirement under IDEA. This begins at by age 16, and students must be invited to their IEP meetings by this age. And so some post-secondary goals that they discuss in this transition planning stage include future education or training, such as college or trade school, employment and independent living. Um, and transition services are supports that help students move from school to adulthood. And so similarly to the goals that I just mentioned, some examples of transition services include job training, life skills instruction, and college preparation. So participation is a process. The progression looks different for every student, but a sort of outline that we can try to abide to is starting off by listening to what the student says that their needs are, what they're struggling with, what they love to do, and then encouraging them to share that beyond family members, and maybe with their teachers or other team members. And then this can lead into participation in their IEP meetings, and then eventually to leading parts or most of their meetings, and wherever they feel most comfortable. And it's also important to remember that every student develops at their own pace, so this is going to look different between each student. Um, And starting off with small steps leads to very meaningful growth and long-term effects in their IEP meetings and in their educational journeys. So some tools for sort of preparing your student to participate in their IEP meeting. Some things that you can talk about with your student is before the IEP meetings, you can start discussing their strengths and goals, and sort of practice more specific things that they can say in the actual meeting. So then during, we want to create an open, comfortable, and safe space for them to share what their strengths and goals are, or just whatever they are open and comfortable with sharing. And then afterwards, we can review these goals, review the strengths and their likes and dislikes that they shared with the team. So some sample student scripts that you might be able to work on to prepare for participating in these IEP meetings is just preparing with simple, flexible sentence starters, such as one thing I'm good at is, something I'm working on is, it helps me learn or I learn best when something that is hard for me, and a goal that I have is. It might help students to write, draw, or record their responses beforehand so that they can come into their meeting with something prepared to say. Um, and their scripts can be adapted for different communication styles because each student communicates differently and feels comfortable speaking in different ways. And so this one pager is an example of a worksheet here that students can jot down their strengths, challenges, preferences, needs, and have that prepared so that they can go into their meetings with something already listed out. So that might be a helpful tool um, to use. So there are some common concerns that parents, guardians, family members might have when involving their student in IEP participation. And so one of these concerns might be my child is too young. Well, participation can be as simple as choosing or sitting in and listening. A couple slides earlier, we mentioned in early childhood, participation can look just like simply saying what you want to learn, or it can just be sitting in the meeting. And so it doesn't have to be as daunting of an idea. Another concern is my child won't want to talk. And they can share in other ways. So, as mentioned, students can write down what they want to share. They can record something beforehand, or they can draw out what they might want to share to their team. Any form of communication is open, but participation in whatever form is encouraged, and they can do that in whatever way feels most comfortable to them. Another concern is what if they say the wrong thing? Um, well, there are no wrong contributions to IEP participation, and this is a part of the learning process for the IEP team. They are there for the student, and they want to learn what the student likes, needs, and they want to work around the student. And so participation is about growth, not perfection, and the adults and IEP team are there to support and guide the student and family and guardians. So a little bit about family school collaboration between the student, family, IEP teams. Strong partnerships lead to better outcomes, so this is crucial in this process. And collaboration might look like shared goal setting between families, students, and educators. And there should always be ongoing communication with the team and not just with the team and family, not just at the IEP meeting. And there should always be respect for family knowledge and different cultural backgrounds that the student and family may be coming from. And so, some ways that families can stay involved, they can check in regularly with their teachers and school psychologists. They can continue to ask questions about their students' progress and supports, and just continue to share insights about your child's strengths and what they may continue to need as things change. And so, it's important to stay updated with your team members and continue to share those insights. So, some key takeaways from this presentation that we hope you all can take along with you is that student voice builds confidence and independence. Participation can begin very early and can grow and develop over time. And that early participation may sound daunting, but it can even look as simple as just sitting in on your meeting or just sharing what you like and dislike. Um, and self-determination skills support long-term success. And when families and schools work together, this makes the biggest impact in students' educational journeys. And taking these small steps today helps build stronger outcomes in the future. So, a couple resources or organizations that have a plethora of resources for students and families um, in their students' IEP goals and journeys and meetings include the Pacer Center, Rights Law, the Center for Parent Information and Resources, and contacting your school's school psychologist. And then this is another resource that Haley and I found and have found beneficial in our grant work is a student rubric for IEP participation. So this can be some sort of a starting checklist or a checklist of where you kind of want your student to be participating or where they are. And sort of help you set goals of how they can participate in the future. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We hope that you were able to learn some helpful information with student participation in their IEPs. Thank you.